I would be remiss if I didn't give the soundbite a try here. 1 second.
Ooh, give it a try.
I have the best job.
Oh my god.
How was it? How was it?
That was pretty good.
Thank you. Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 52. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hedge.
Behind the scenes for you people, like I called out Ryan on trying to take a sip of his water, like mid countdown for the start off, and then he didn't even take the sip of water. Like we already delayed this 10 seconds, and he didn't get his water.
We're back. We're back with another episode, as we always promise. Up top, we always do housekeeping, so we're going to do that again. You can listen to us everywhere. And we mean it, everywhere. Follow us on TikTok for clips and on Twitter to keep up to date on episodes. That's the easiest way to do it. That's at Podcast Core. That's COR. And then you can send an email if you want to contact us about anything at podcastcore@gmail.com. And we're everywhere at Podcast Core. So it's easy to find. So leave us a like, follow, and a short review/comment. And tell a friend to get the glory they deserve by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
For glory in the arenas.
So state of the game. What are we playing? I'm actually playing. It's been 3 episodes, and I'm playing a deck. It's happened. It happened at the end of last episode, where we talked about Giori Senpai.
That's right.
Posting some decks, not his decks, but decks he approved of. One of them was a Sharvan deck. I put it together. I am not playing it yet. I am playing the Ziver deck, which is Zed and Sivir, and that's going very well. It plays around, runs some elusive stuff, or the elusive, the 1-cost elusive burst spell, and the double strike to try to get one over on your opponent. There's a lot of decks kind of running that strategy. Yeah, along with a bit of Young Witch to get over people. It's very aggressive. It's very fun. And I'm kind of just riding that. Playing a lot more casually than usual because I still am playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14.
You monster.
I know. But I am playing a deck now. I'm in the meta. I'm learning. I'm getting Hedge before this episode. Listen to me get a game stolen from me. I'm sticking to that story.
How many cards were spells in a creature deck? And technically, I'm the one not playing this week, but it's not because I haven't been playing Runeterra. For people who've listened before, you know that I love playing around in the labs and doing all the PvE stuff that's been coming out. And at the time of this recording, we got the new Bilgewater dungeon crawl in the lab. And so as far as that, it's been a lot of fun, just kind of playing around with it, trying to get more of a feel for it to see if we're going to talk about it a lot more later. But otherwise, I've been having fun. I've only got 1 victory through it right now, which was obviously misfortune because I have a problem. I'm in the middle of a Tom Kench playthrough right now, though, so I've been having a blast with that.
Yeah, I know you love you some Kench. Always in the background, trying to make him work in ways he's not supposed to.
Unbench the Kench. Yeah, that's the key thing. Is I love Kench, but I refuse to play Tom Kench Soraka. It's like, oh yeah, this makes way too much sense. That's not what I'm about.
I refuse to have my hand forced.
What? I've only built like 4 Tom Kench Lux decks. All right, like this. I know what I like. Damn it.
So, Noxus fans, it's happening. We're back. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately? Nah, it can't be unfortunately when we're talking about...
I'm doing the bit.
But it's the big man himself.
I know.
You can't do the bit with Draven.
The topic of this episode, the World Reckoner Entertainment Incorporated. You'll get the joke soon enough.
And yes,
Once
we
again, we're
will.
dating ourselves.
And yes, we're gonna have the T-shirt. We're gonna get the get the WRE instead of
WRE.
make it look like the NWO shirts.
Yeah. Oh man, it fits. Listen, the pun fits so well. We'll get there, but first we always start with spells. Hedge, take us off. Take us off.
All right, so if there is on like I would love to have fun with my picks here, and the problem is that with Draven, the nice little world they've built around him is just too big. Like they have done a great job in
Yep.
Runeterra of building this wonderful environment for Draven's story to come to life. We got to keep it simple here. When it gets too big, you keep it simple. So first up, Whirling Death. All right, you know this card. You love this card. If you don't play Noxus, you hate this card. All right, Whirling Death is 3 mana fast spell. A battling ally strikes a battling enemy. It's I've talked about it before. One-sided strikes always powerful. I don't care who you are. That's just a fact. The asymmetrical fight mechanic is always going to be good. So it's nice for an aggro list to have a decent form of removal. And this one, at the very least, is limited by the fact that they have to be battling. So you're not going to be able to just kind of, 3 mana kill something for free. Like you've got to really figure out how the board's going to work out and try to get your opponent to play the way you want. So it is fun and it has a little bit of interaction with it in that sense.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is a staple, obviously a legacy card, and it's a good representation of Riot's approach to balancing. To what Hedge said, it's a 3-cost fast spell, nothing broken there. The fact that they have to be battling, that's another stipulation that, meters how strong this can be. And then also it relies on the creature being alive, which means you have to be able to account for it being removed. So there's a lot of steps there that keep this card in check. And even through all that checklist of things, when you're checking a balance, a power level, it's still viable, and it has been viable since day one. So this is just a really well-designed card in their ecosystem.
yep. And I love it since I'm constantly trying to make Katarina work. And this card is wonderful to have for Katarina.
And
But
I would be remiss if I didn't give the soundbite a try here. 1 second.
ooh, give it a try.
I have the best job.
Oh my god.
How was it? How was it?
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was
7 out of
pretty
10?
good.
7 out of 10?
7 out of 10, yes. I can't top it. So let's just hop on to the next one. All right. And the next one, again, we're keeping it simple, and we're going to talk about the first ship that was ever put in the game, and that is Draven's biggest fan. All right. So all the other boats that came into the game, like when we got to like the Rising Tides patch, eat your heart out. All right. Draven's biggest fan was there since the beginning. All right. For if you don't know, Draven's biggest fan is a 1 mana 2/1. When I'm summoned, move Draven to the top of your deck if you don't have him in hand or in play. And like this is the very first example that we got, period, because it is a legacy card of the fetch mechanic in Runeterra, and it is very nice to have to be able to just on turn 1, especially if you're on the attack on turn 1, get a 2/1 in play, so potentially 2 damage to face, and make sure that you have Draven ready for that turn 3 drop so that you can get those Whirling Axes online right away. So this card is just good. Every Draven deck runs this card. I know Swim is constantly running decks where it's not even a full set of Draven, but a full set of Draven's biggest fan because it's just a very good 1-drop that also consistently gets you Draven. So this is the staple. But you know why on this show we're going to talk about him. And I guess it's my turn now to go ahead and try to
go
do
ahead,
my
do
version.
it.
So you want an autograph? Get in line, pal.
Listen, it's so great. We'll get to the story. But the thing about Draven is he's such a caricature inside a very serious story plot.
A very serious story plot. And it's not even that, like, his parts of the story, like, aren't serious. Like, he is in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And then this is the character that we get out of the thick. Like,
Yeah.
it's Draven is just such a gift.
Yeah,
Like,
it's very anime in the sense of when you have like a Hunter x Hunter and you have the goofy, lovable character who's still very skilled, and when the battle starts, he goes ape mode and then
yeah.
drops some one-liners here and there. And then after, when we're back in the city doing the filler episodes, he's goofing about and like overeating, and this
Yep.
is Draven.
And you give that example with one of my favorite animes ever. This is why this is why we have the show.
I
It
know,
has nothing
right?
to do with the content.
I know what Hetch wants.
uh, all right, and so as far as like this crazy and goofy character, like what's the environment that this all takes place in? That's right, we get a landmark because this is taking place in the Noxus Arena. All right, and I will read this card in detail because no one knows what it does. No one's played this card.
I
All
want it
right.
to be Nox Crea, so you can be like, that's Cray, the Cray Arena. Like it marketing wise, it's
Oh no.
important, but I understand that it's Nox Crea, and I'll
Oh
concede
no
that
no
point.
no no! It's done. It's established now. So Noxus Arena is. You heard it here on the Casuals for Terra. It's officially Noxus Arena, and we will not be accepting questions. So Noxus Arena is a 5-mana landmark. And this is before we got the countdown stuff. So this is when the landmarks that just sticks on your board. And at round end, your strongest ally and the weakest enemy strike each other. Um, it is important to point out that this is not asymmetrical. This is the true Magic the Gathering effect of fight. All right, your strongest guy, enemy weakest guy are going to go up against each other. And as far as the strongest and weakest, it takes into account the attack power first, and then the ties after that are determined by HP and then determined by mana cost. Um, and they this one is a weird card because it is at the round end and it's technically in that space between the passing over of turns. I know a bit of how this card works because Confession Time Hetch has tried to make this work a lot. Um, so since it is in between the space between giving up your turn to the enemy turn or vice versa, it is a thing where like regenerate doesn't take effect. So regenerate would trigger first, and then this strike would happen. Uh, and other effects that happen in between there would also take effect too. So if you are running Ionia and you have the Eyes of the Dragon out, like if the little dragon spirit would be summoned and then this would take place first. It's in a weird spot as far as when this actually triggers. I've tried to make this work in a very aggressive Vladimir lineup, and then just try to buff Vladimir a lot, kind of like a Fiora deck, and make Vladimir be the one just to strike over and over again.
Yeah.
But you have to be really careful with it because like you don't get like the full benefits of the regenerate. So there's sometimes if they drop something too big, you lose your attack because then it's like, oh great, I'm gonna lose Vladimir off this attack because he only has like 1 health. It's a weird card. I have desperately played around with it. I will probably try to do it again because I have a problem.
Yeah,
But
fight effects are scary in this form. So for Magic, this would be considered like an enchantment style. And usually in Magic, those have had a record of being broken all the time. So I can tell why they went on the opposite end of that spectrum. It was like, hey, we're gonna make this
yeah,
damn near unplayable. If you want to play it, then go ahead. But there's so many effects like this now that you have more control over. That this is more for your casual players and stuff, and like your limited events, right?
Yep. And which is why Hetch is still
Yep.
playing around with this card. Now, uh, in the vein of what we've been doing, though, if it wasn't clear yet that we're making a lot of wrestling references, the flavor text on this card will make it clear because it is a direct quote from the Arena Battlecaster, which is a card in the game. But here goes. Hey there, Reckoner fans! Are you ready for a night of scorching hot thrills in the ring of fire? Whoa, looks like Tiny Trick drew the short straw today. He's up against the mighty, fighty Granak the Great. Get those medics ringside. It's gonna be a quick one.
That's so good.
Yeah, that is what is on the card, and it has the music notes to go with it, so that you know where to put the inflection.
Exactly. Dude, I love the flavor text in this game,
Oh,
man. It's so perfect.
yeah.
It
So
fits every time.
if it isn't clear yet, like the Nux Cray arena is Draven's home away from home, and so how does this become his home, Ryan? How
Oh,
did Draven get here?
yeah, it's it's a doozy. It's almost left field, but it's written so well, and we'll get there. But we have to start off this episode by saying, please listen to our Swain and Darius episode. There's so much allusion there to what we're talking about today, because Draven's episode really fills in the blank. So, for example, when we did our Shadow Isle stuff, and then Viego finally came out, listen to our Viego episode. Viego filled in a lot of gaps of the rest of the stuff we talked about early on in our show's history, right? So for this, we talked about Swain, we talked about Darius, and for you Noxus fans, unfortunately, the Noxus content is very scattered as new stuff has come out. But it will give you a better place of, oh, now I know what was happening in between those two storylines because they all overlap, right? They're all involved.
Yep.
So that's a disclaimer.
And again, we love these stories, so we're gonna hit them. It just Noxus happened to be in that poor spot where we are getting all this stuff, and it's like, oh, it's not like there's new characters for us to talk about that's outside of Noxus, anyways. Announcement for Akshan episode at some point.
So, like Darius, his brother, Draven was also an orphan. Obviously, they were orphan children in the streets of Basilish, and they were kind of scrounging by. The standard orphan stuff you hear, you would think Draven would fit well into PZ, right? And the kind of dynamic they had here is Draven was a little hothead. He would always start the fights, but he was kind of smaller, and Darius would always finish them for him. So a good big brother, right? Soon in Basilish's history, while they were children, it was taken by Noxus as Noxus is going on their campaigns, right? And after attempting to take the captain's life, so Captain Cyrus was the leader of this campaign. He sees, some ambition in these young kids, and he's like, all right, you didn't successfully kill me, thankfully, but how would you like to join our ranks, young boys? And they take up that offer, and they join essentially the military. So what we learn through this, this time in the military, is, as we talked about in Darius's episode, he fits very well into that format. He's kind of like the Garen of Noxus, whereas Draven has the skills to be a soldier, but not really the heart to be one, right? It's not what he wants to do. It's just like he's capable. It's like those kids you see in sports where they're really good, they have that natural talent, they have the physical ability, but they really want to be like a scientist or like a program, like something different, right?
Yeah, we want to be a scientist or a programmer. More of a call out to like our Gnosis and Renekton episodes.
Yeah.
Like Renekton, he didn't have the discipline. All right, like Renekton just wanted to kill people. Draven just wants to kind of chill. I'm not into this whole, militaristic nation idea of just like one for all and all for one. I can fight, but I'd rather have fun with the fights.
Exactly. That's a good point. That's a good comparison. And what we tend to get is he just gets bored. He wants this concept of glory is one that's pushed very forward in his story. Is he wants to be showered with stuff and showered with praise for what he does. And in war, especially under Borm Darkwill, you're not gonna get that, right? It's just like, hey, do my bidding for my crazy plans that will never come to fruition.
Do my bidding so I may become immortal.
Exactly. So his first attempt is like, okay, how can I have more fun? I will fight under my brother. So he joins his brother's command, and that doesn't make it easier. It makes it harder because he puts a lot of pressure on Draven, and his brother has something to prove. So that didn't solve the problem for his glory that he wanted. So he's like, okay, I'm going to leave. Leaves his brother's command, and it's not really specified if it was his choice or Darius's choice. But it does happen. And when he leaves, all the contracts start coming in, right? It's like a player leaving, a popular NFL team. Everybody's trying to put an offer on the table. It's like, hey, join our war band. You'll get the respect you get here, whatever. And he's like, none of this kind of fits. And what he ends up finding as a good fit is a contract, a very lucrative one, in the Reckoning Pits. So the Reckoning Pits, for comparison, is basically a gladiator combat arena, right? As we know it from the Roman times.
Yeah,
It's entertainment.
And as we learned, thanks to the Runeterra game, these pits, the Reckoner Pits, were not necessarily called the Reckoner Pits, but days of old, before the Reckoner events, it was known as the Noxcrea Arena.
Hey, the callback. And what this was used for was for criminals who were being punished, right? So capital punishment. Houses having duels. And then, some stars would pop out of there. And Draven did become a star. He finally started getting that level of recognition he wanted in this arena. But this was occurring during these long campaigns that were going on under Borm Darkwill's rule. So I don't know if you know this, but when a country is at war constantly, there's not much room for entertainment and leisure, right? So you start to have this, long drawn out situation of, there weren't big crowds. Citizens weren't really interested in seeing this entertainment at the moment, and it slumped. And this kind of put Draven in a slump as well. He was broke, he was drunk, and he was tired all the time. And it was the perfect time for Swain to swoop in. I did it. Yeah, I did it. I said it.
This guy. I'm done. I'm out.
Listen, every day we tackle with hard. We come to face hard decisions, and we have to make them. And I had to make one.
No, every day we stray further from God.
So Swain shows up, and he's like, "Hey, Draven, what up? You want a job?" And what this turns into is, Draven becomes Swain's sort of right-hand man and plays a big part in the coup against Borm Darkwill. So, those who didn't really take, so what we shift into is these pits, which were used for a form of like brutal entertainment, now shifted into a place of, punishment to those who didn't subscribe to this new world order. Call back to what Hetch mentioned. And, you were sentenced to the pits. And in the pits, you were fighting Draven, which pretty much was a death sentence at that point. So he became what was a glorified executioner in the form of entertainment and earned the name that we've seen, which is the Glorious Executioner.
Yeah, and it's one thing as far as like to say that it's like Draven gets out of this slump, out of this rut because he becomes an executioner.
Mhm.
That's, yes, it is technically like that, and it's super grim and everything. And it's not so much a death sentence because you're, up against Draven, which is true. His martial prowess is far above many in Noxus. Draven's gonna have fun with it, and that's why Draven has a smile on his face. It's not because, yeah, I get to kill people. No, it is the wash of the crowd
He's
cheering.
a showman.
He wants to see the poster boards that should say Stone Cold Steve Austin 316.
You hear the glass shatter.
Yeah, like
And he comes in with the jean cutoffs.
he's got he's got some imported brews from
Yeah.
from Freljord, some Graggy Ice that he opens by banging on his head, chugs them in front of the crowd. But it's the show.
Yeah.
Like Draven's excited for the show. It is not about the killing.
Exactly.
But even though it's not technically about the killing for him, there is killing, and we get some of that in detail with this story.
Yes. Yes, we do. Do you want to talk about the glorious executioner moment?
Let's do it.
How citizens react to this brutalness?
All right. So specifically what happens after Swain kind of comes in to revive the Noxcrea arena, is Draven at this point is the executioner, but the executioner within the arena was more of a ceremonial position. So you're the top dog, so the top dog doesn't get their hands dirty. So a condemned man is put into the arena, and you're put into the arena, you fight for the entertainment of the people, but ultimately you die. This guy escapes from his handlers. So it says he's escaped from his handlers. More likely than not, this guy probably was able to kill one of them, because it's still a fight. Like, even though it is a controlled thing, that idea of like the strongest against the weakest. Uh, so he escapes. So what Draven does, he is in his balcony. Think like your Roman Colosseum setup. He's in his penthouse seat. He jumps from his balcony seating, and while jumping away, he hurls his axes at this fleeing man and cuts him down in a heartbeat, and then lands on the gladiatorial ground, blood-soaked floor, and it's the top dog is down here with all the other dogs, kills him, and then there's a stunned silence, because that's not what the executioner does. It is a ceremonial position. You're just there overseeing. But all of a sudden, this guy is just like midair 360 no scopes this poor prisoner, and now he's like on the ground in superhero pose, like yeah. And so there's just silence, and then the eruption from the crowd.
Yeah.
And that is when Draven goes to this corpse, pulls his axes out of them, and then starts doing his spinning in the air, like what we see in the League of Legends emotes and all the animations. All the flare comes out, and Draven's like, yeah, what's up? It's not Draven, it's Draven. And that is how we get the executioner becoming the glorious executioner.
Exactly.
And the legend of Draven's truly born at this point.
Yep. And after this point is when we have the big shift in culture, because he's soon approached by a promoter by the name of Vince McMahon, with a plan to start the World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporated, known as the WWE. This is all canon, folks, in real life. This is how it started.
And the only thing in their way was Jericho, Ric Flair, Swain. We've aged ourselves way too much on this.
I know,
episode.
right? So all wrestling jokes aside, it's essentially that process where a promoter does approach him, and the promoter's intent is like, hey, these people, they're called reckoners, that were training to fight in these arenas for these people's entertainment. I'm tired of them dying. It's not a good investment. So what if instead we took the approach of like a wrestling federation, where you have people that train, they're given the space to be lethal, or not lethal, but the space to be violent and do some cool things to entertain the crowd. You give them backstories, they get flashy appearances, they get like background music, entrances, and they have backstories and all that. But the goal is not to kill each other so that we can keep the storylines going. And Draven's like, sure, why not? And fans love it. Fans end up taking very well to this shift. in the state of what these pits used to be used for. And Draven thrives in that environment, and he finally gets to return to those glory days, right, of when he was somewhere near the peak of getting that recognition, and it's finally the thing he was looking for. And it kind of permeates throughout his life. And to Hetch's point earlier, this is some brutal stuff, right? We're talking about death, we're talking about violence, we're talking about coups. But this moment does fix his life. Like, it gets him out from being a drunkard. He fixes his relationship with his brother. He even goes on some campaigns to help, as they shift from under Borum Darkrule's rule to different types of campaigns. He's participating in those, and a lot of these conquerings are less decided by the destruction of whole villages and more on one-on-one bouts with leadership and stuff like that. So I know it's like a asterisk on it, but there's some good to come out of all this.
Yes, yeah, it definitely is an asterisk, and I mean, and I love that Riot did like continue with this part of the story when we get to Runeterra as well, because like if we were doing this show before Runeterra came out, his story would kind of end there, and we wouldn't be able to have like as much of the laughs as we do comparing
Mhm.
it to like the WWE. It, because we didn't have that back in the day. And then Runeterra, they ran with it, because
Yeah.
that's when we get Draven's biggest fan.
Mhm.
We get the Battlecaster, and then we also have like Shiraza the Blade and Kato the Arm
Yep.
and the crowd favorite. These guys that are like, their stories and their personas are bigger than like their actual fighting ability.
Yeah.
And like that is just so cool that they kind of went back to just a nice little tip of the hat to this part of Draven's story, because otherwise it would just kind of be like, oh yeah, Draven was involved in a coup, and then
Yeah.
like now has a cushy job sitting in the arenas watching people die.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of like, that's horrifically morbid. Like it's like horrifically morbid. But
Yeah.
now instead, now he's just the leader of the Federation. Sometimes he hops in the ring and punches out guys that are you know look like they're in better shape than he is, all the while everyone knows if he wanted to, he could just kill
Yeah.
them all.
Yeah, and this kind of, they leave us off on the moment of, hey, you know what? Draven thought he was satisfied, but that's starting to waver. And he's starting to become restless again. He wants more. He wants the world to know his name. And that could open up to a space of bringing in some outside combatants, right? Like people who aren't from Noxus that are involved in this arena. Because throughout other regions, there is no other region that has anything like this, right? Like this arena.
Yeah,
So
the
as Noxus,
closest is Freljord,
exactly.
and with Freljord, it's not an arena.
Oh no,
The Freljord literally just has a hole in the ground,
yeah.
and it's just like, all right, Trindamir's in there and he's pissed.
There's nothing entertaining about
It's
that.
nothing entertaining.
So let's get to the card. I know we took a while to get here. This card, I mean, Swim did a tier list a while ago that we talked about, and it was ranked up there at the top because it's just a solid, good card. It's very flexible, and they don't ever have to touch it, right? They nailed it with this card. So Draven is a 3 cost on his first side. He's a 3 cost, 3/3 with quick attack, and he has, when I'm summoned or strike, create a spinning axe in hand. And then he levels up when he's struck with 2 total spinning axes. So what is spinning axe? Talk about that real quick. It's a 0 cost burst spell that has to play, discard 1, and then give an ally +1/+0 this round. So this card is very balanced. It has the benefit of giving you something to discard, or something you can discard or use to discard other things to trigger effects. So it's very flexible there. The 3 cost 3/3 is perfect for damn near any deck. The quick attack is always good because you want this in more aggressive decks anyways. So him being on the attack, you're never really going to block with a Draven. And even if you do block with a Draven, you get a spinning axe out of it. This card has always been a staple, and I think will continue to, is probably the basis for a lot of their future designs, which is why it always fits so well.
Yeah, and the fact that it's the spinning axe creation is what makes it so flexible, because that we got to see when the Rising Tides came out that a lot of people weren't considering how flexible this card was because it is statted out in such an aggressive manner that it wasn't until people started playing around with more Twisted Fate decks that other people said, hang on a second, instead of Twisted Fate to trigger all these Ezreal effects, what if we just use Spinning Axes? And that was the true birth of the Ezreal Draven deck, and you will still see it today because it's just good. It is just a good way to play the Runeterra as far as how reaction based the game is, and that 0 mana burst speed spell is always going to be useful. Uh, but it's not like Draven's not scary after he flips. And that flip is just, the +1/+1, the quick attack, and overwhelm.
Yep.
And now he creates 2 spinning axes instead of 1 when he strikes or when he's played. And already, just if you have the discard fodder to put both spinning axes, that's 6 overwhelm. Or worst case scenario, you just are discarding these axes you're making, and he's still a 5 overwhelm. And we've seen with how many new cards they've put in the game that help buff attack. Draven can be scary. You can't ignore Draven, even though he can fit in so many decks and just be a support to what that deck wants to do. Draven can do what he wants to do too.
Yeah, he's dangerous, and he's also a great engine. So obviously the flavor here we've talked about to death is the 1 spinning axe to start with, 2 spinning axes when he flips. Like, come on, we get it, right? There's even a quote on spinning axe which says, it's from an arena regular, so somebody attending the arena, and he says, his brother'd win 1-on-1, but you see those axes spiraling, it's art. It is art. It's like you're talking to someone who really loves music.
And it's like talking to a Tool fan. Like,
that's actually really good.
Oh God! And you know the guy that they're quoting on the spinning axe, like he's holding a poster board, Draven 316.
Yeah.
Like he's holding that poster board. He knows what he's about.
So,
oh goodness.
One thing you're a fan of is this part of the episode where we usually have a question and or challenge for Hetch.
Of
For
course.
this one, I think you guys could pretty much guess where we're going with this. Okay, so what would be your Reckoner name, weapon style, and backstory? So I'll go first as always, as the gracious host for the question. And so mine, I don't know if we've mentioned this on the show, my nickname since middle school has been Beefy Darkness.
Oh no.
So it's only natural that I bring that into the wrestling world. So Beefy Darkness is my name. My weapons are elaborate fist weapons because I love playing monks. It's just my thing. And my backstory is the simple one. A man raised by bears with a short fuse and a penchant for violence. So I think it all fits. And I'll give you a little bit of time here, Hetch. Think on it. Cause
no. I don't need too much time.
Oh, no.
I don't need too much
ready.
time. All right. My brain works really quick. The problem because what I needed the time on was just like, what would my name be? I got my weapon and backstory.
Eddie Guerrero 2. Here it comes.
Oh, no. All right. So my name. I think I like you would kind of like part of me wants to try to harken back to like high school nicknames and stuff like that, but they're a little too clowny.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be like that villain that just shows up only in the early fights and literally never wins.
Gold Dust.
I want to be that villain you kind of like be the villain that you kind of cheer for, right?
Okay.
Like that you kind of like, man, I know he's the bad guy, but I like him. So the name I'm not too sure on. I know the backstory though. The backstory
You can
is
give us
my
multiple.
weapon.
Give us
My
multiple
weapon
names.
is going to be a baseball shaped club, all right?
Okay.
Or like a baseball bat shaped club.
Yeah.
It's gonna look a little more violent than a normal baseball bat. And the backstory is that I grew up playing baseball and I would have gone pro, but I volunteered into the ranks of the legions and I took an arrow to the knee. And now I take out my aggression on my lost baseball career in the Noxus arena. And instead of hitting home runs, I hit convicts. All right. And so it's an ex-veteran, but with a penchant for violence, so you can't truly cheer for him. Yeah, I'm like that, and I think what I'm gonna go with, pay a little homage to like my family, my clan, and I will be Papucho, the slugger.
I like it, and I feel like you gotta really. Like when you bring the Spanish in during your like monologues, right? Obviously, you're coming out to your music. You really gotta lay the Spanish on thick. Like it has to be like caricature levels.
Oh no, I'm gonna like mimic my grandfather's accent every time I'm in the ring. All right. Like I'm gonna have like a nice little following of ex fans.
Yeah.
That went to like get an autograph from me. And like they sneak up on me to like get an autograph, and they hear me just talking with a coworker, and I'm talking like like perfect English. It's like the accent, it was fake. What else is fake?
My immersion.
My immersion. And, turn around. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you, Jay. Hi, my little friend, you come for the autograph de Papucho?
And with that, as always, thanks for having fun with us and listening. And as always, we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Take care, everybody.